That's right, guys. Motor City Mining here, coming at you from my house because we got a very special delivery today. This is very special for many reasons. Number one, it's a brand new Bitcoin miner from Canaan. Number two, and this is why I'm extra excited, this is actually, and I always want to be honest with you guys, this is my first sponsored content. Now, I've always said on my channel, I really don't want to do like major sponsorships. I don't really advocate for specific coins, like do your own research. I'm not going to shove things down your throat or anything like that. But I have always said if the opportunity for hardware is available, I mean, obviously there's a bonus to me. I get new hardware and that's awesome. But like I just love hardware. I love talking about hardware, love seeing what's out there. And, you know, if I have an opportunity to show a new miner and put my thoughts on it, again, I'll always be honest with you guys, always have been. Again, I'm not really in the business of getting sponsors, but if someone reaches out to me, in this case, Canaan did, they reached out to me mainly because my Avalon Nano video, link down below, where I did that initial review, that was not sponsored in any way. And it blew up. I mean, appreciate all the support, guys. Again, I have always bought Canaan ASICs for Bitcoin mining. I've always really liked them as a company. Again, this is not something they're telling me to say. I've just always preferred them over WhatsMiner or Bitmain. And that is because, well, their warranty is generally a lot longer, at least a year for pretty much all devices. Again, check the fine print on any specific device, but in my experience, they're pretty much almost all a year, which is at least 6 months more than all their competitors. They're also a publicly traded company, so they are, you know, responsible to their shareholders, publicly traded on NYSE. They are also not from China, they're from Singapore. So that's awesome for both tariff reasons and, you know, if you're trying to diversify and not have all your mining equipment come from China, another good option. So again, that's why I've always kind of really liked Canaan or Canaan. I've heard it pronounced either way. I don't know what one's correct. But again, they reached out to me just because that prior video that you guys all loved about my Avalon Nanos, since I was one of the first people to get one, because again, that was unsponsored. That was more because they knew I had always bought lots of BTC ASICs from them, and they reached out to me with the opportunity prior to any public information. They're like, hey, would you be interested in buying one? And I was like, sure, sounds great. But that video did so well because of all y'all and all the support on that video. It was my first truly like viral video, that they were like, you know what? You helped us sell a bunch of these. You weren't paid for it. You want a free BTC miner. All you got to do is review it, sign an NDA. I can't open the unit. I can open the box. Don't worry about that. But I can't open up the unit. But again, like I said, I want to be honest with you guys, let you know the limitations of what I can and can't do. But I'm never going to say no to new hardware and experimenting with new hardware. So that's what we got. We got the new A1566 Avalon miner. This is a 212 model, which is also super exciting because when they originally reached out, I think these were all going to be 182 terahash. And then I got a nice notification that, oh, actually we have, you know, we've had better, you know, yield from our chips, and it's going to be higher. So that's kind of cool. And we'll obviously do a comparison of, you know, performance of this compared to like, say, a WhatsMiner or a Bitmain product. And, you know, obviously cost comparison as well. Obviously mine I got for free. I'm not going to lie to you about that. I got it for free. So it's everything's, you know, gravy on top at this point for this one. But again, the other thing I really do like about Canaan is their cost compared to Bitmain and WhatsMiner. Sometimes less performance or less efficiency than their competitors, but their costs are generally lower on products, so the barrier to entry is lower. And again, their warranties are definitely better. They're a publicly traded company, which means they're more, you know, responsive to, you know, being nice to customers. Again, prior video to this one was about them giving out free fans to prior customers, just because, you know, some people complained about hot PSU bricks. So it's going to be a longer video again because it is an unboxing, it's a review video, and it's sponsored content. So let's get into it. Let's open this up, see what it looks like. Really excited to open this for you guys and get some new BTC ASICs, because as you know from some of my prior videos, most of my Bitcoin ASICs have been off since the halving. They are getting close to being profitable again, with, you know, the pump in Bitcoin. But let's get this open, check it out. We got it out of the box, and this thing is immaculate. And there's a lot of things I'm noticing right away that are either similar to if you've ever had an Avalon BTC ASIC before, or actually different. The biggest one is the plug. So this actually looks like the inverse of a new Bitmain miner. This actually has been the standard though on Avalon miners since I think the 14 series. Again, this is a 15 series, a 1566. I never had a 14 series. They kind of came out, you know, when Bitcoin was super expensive. I had 10, 11, and 12 series Bitcoin ASICs from Avalon. Never had a 13 or a 14. But I believe this became standard on the 14, if not the 13. But you can see this plug here. So they do give you one. Unfortunately, this is not a typical like PDU plug. So this is actually a 20 amp, I think it's just a 6-20 NEMA plug. I actually did have a bunch of these outlets at the farm originally when I started leasing the place. And I replaced all of them. Again, this is the 20 amp. I replaced them either with L620s, which are a locking 20 amp, because I prefer the lock rather than this, you know, just friction fit, push in, pull out. But I prefer the locking one. But since I did have this at one point, I had some adapters. I have some adapters for this, so I think I can actually plug this in at the farm. If not, I can always put the old receptacle back on the wall. The only issue with that is that means this will be the only thing that can run on there, because again, this doesn't plug into a PDU. They did mention to me they're sending me a PDU wire, so that'll be really awesome. Again, I can't say if that's something that I would imagine if you buy one of these, it'll come with this. I can't say they'll give everyone a free wire, but they are sending me a wire, so I can use it with my PDUs. But yeah, just something to note. Different type of plug type. I don't actually remember the number, what this is. Other things, these are not new to Avalon miners. These mini 4-pins, this has been how they've powered the fans for as long as I can remember, to be honest. I think all my 11 and 12s definitely have this. I want to say even my 10 series had this, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, it's really nice for replacing fans because you don't have to open up the top or anything. You can just unplug your 4-pin and call it a day. But this does get me to something new here. You will notice there is no back fans on this, which is really surprising for a Bitcoin ASIC that uses over 3,000 watts. Again, this is not a home miner. I'm just being honest with you guys. Any 3,000 plus watt ASIC miner is really not meant for the home miner. Can you run them at home? Sure. You'll need 240 volt. So you'll need to add circuits. You'll have to have the right plugs. They're loud. I don't know if this one's loud. I haven't tried it yet. But they're typically louder, you know, create a lot of heat. They're really not meant for the home miner. They're for, you know, people with larger spaces dedicated to mining. Mining sheds maybe, or this. So, other thing I noticed though, not only does it not have the back fans, the front fans are a lot thicker, like way thicker. Like, I should get a measuring tape. When we go to the farm to plug this in, we'll get a measuring tape. But I want to say these are like 40 mil. No, they're more than that. I feel like normal fans are a little, what, 38 millimeter fans? So these gotta be like 45 or something. I don't know. They're super thick, so maybe that's why they don't need the back fans. Maybe that extra depth. I mean, look at these blades. They're huge. I've never seen fans this big, I'll be honest. I mean, they're still 120 millimeter, but oh my gosh, they're huge. They must, pump tons of airflow through this thing. But yeah, we're gonna have to bring this to the farm. Obviously, I don't have 240 volt at my house. My panel's completely full. But like I said, I should be able to plug this in at the farm. I think I have an appropriate adapter, but super excited to get this. It looks really cool. Again, typical Avalon miner. So let's head to the farm and see how this thing goes. We made it to the farm, and today we're actually going to be in Blue Squadron room, and that's just because the whole farm is being reorganized at the moment. So I kind of have stuff all over the place. So my ASIC mining room, as you guys know, is the red room, red squadron. We're not going to be in there today. We're actually going to put this on this rack all by itself right here. Works out great. And I lucked out, so they did send me that new power cord already. It already got here. So I do have it in this box here. If I can open this, probably can't. There we go. So this is the one that came with it again, with the standard 240 volt, 20 amp North American plug. Again, I use locking and PDUs, so it didn't really work here. I did actually have an adapter, but I don't need to use it because they sent me a C19 or C20. I can never remember what's the male versus the female. But we got our PDU hook up here, as you can see, and then on the other end we have whatever crazy standard that is. I don't remember. But yeah, so we should be ready. I already got the Ethernet. We're gonna make sure everything lines up so it looks like goes in this way. See if I can get this on there. There we go. It does have latches, so it will latch on and become essentially immovable once it is on there properly. So you'll know there'll be a nice little snap, and then it isn't going anywhere. There's like no wiggle, nothing. This isn't where this is going to go permanently. Like I said, it's going to go in my ASIC room. But for now, for testing it, this is a good room because there's not much operating in here at the moment, so it's relatively quiet. Just got those 4 X8 GPU rigs. These aren't running, and I'm just reworking a whole bunch of things. So, but yeah, let's put this extra wire around. You can see I got the female end here for this guy, so we can plug these together. I'm gonna keep it off just initially. Always best practice to have the switch off when you plug it in. So once you got it plugged in, this is plugged into its own PDU. Nothing else is operating on it, so that'll be good for us to do some power rating. So you can see right now, interesting. Let me double check. Okay, yeah, so the only thing plugged in is that green cord, which is the one right now. It's pulling about 1.36 amps idle. Interesting. So it does pull power idle. It's not, again, the PSU is not even on, but you can see that it is putting power into the PSU, but we haven't turned on the actual on switch. And we're at 234.4 volts about at the moment. So that'll help us at least be able to know how much power this thing's taking. I think this does have a couple different performance modes as well, which we'll get into once we turn it on and get into the, the UI page. So we're going to turn this on now. See how it goes. I don't know if you can hear that. I got noise canceling mic on. I got a new headset for at the farm. But it's actually pretty quiet. I think because of the additional depth of these, they are actually quieter than most ASIC fans. I wish I had a decibel reader for you guys. Maybe that's something I'll get in the future. But yeah, so it looks like everything turned on fine. All the fans are spinning. There's only fans on the front again, which is really different than most BTC miners I've ever seen. Typically, there's 2 on front, 2 on back, or if it's a What's miner, 1 on front, 1 on back, because those are that narrower form factor. But for an Avalon, this is different, having only 2. So yeah, we're gonna go find this on the computer now, see if we can pull up the graphic user interface and kind of see what's going on, what the default settings are, set up our initial pool just so we can get this running, see what the default settings are on the PDU from a power perspective, and then we'll try a couple different things. But yeah, so far pretty quiet, surprisingly. I think it's just because these fans are so big. I also wanted to point out uh, before we jump in the computer, I'm going to grab one of my older uh, Canaan Avalon miners, just so for size comparison. It is actually bigger than my 11 and 12 series. So let's go get those, bring it in here real quick, just for a quick comparison for you guys. So brought in a A12 series. You can kind of see that there. It's a 1246 87 terahash unit I had. Um, it is a tiny bit smaller, not as much as I thought it would be, to be honest. But definitely, you can see how much thicker those new fans are, much further out they stick. The older PSUs are definitely smaller, so there's this gap here, whereas this is full height. And then depth-wise, see if we can see this. You can kind of see there how there's about an extra inch in length on the 15 series versus the 12 series. I don't have a 13 or 14 to compare to, so not sure how those compare. But compared to if you've had an 11 or 12 series, it looks like the new unit's a little longer, but it doesn't have those back fans. So in the end, I guess it's about the same. But just something to note, something I noticed that the new guy's a little bigger than some of the older Avalon miners. Again, not sure how it compares to a 13 or 14 series, but definitely a little bigger and heavier than an 11 or 12. So we're going to hop into the computer now and see if we can get this guy set up on the pool, and then we can see how it is doing from a power usage perspective at its default settings, and then try a couple different other settings in the UI. So I found my Avalon A1566 miner and my router. There's different ways to find your local IP, but you'll want to find your local IP. So however you are able to do that on your system will depend on your router and a few other things. But I found mine. So you'll want to find that IP. You'll be greeted by the normal Avalon login page, and root and root are always their password and username. And you can see that I've already got it up and running here. I kind of cheated a little bit. I already redid the configuration to my pool. But typically what you'll be greeted with is this page here, which is typical to all Avalon miners, including even the Avalon Nanos. Obviously the information might be a little different, but the overall look and feel is very familiar to anyone that's used an Avalon miner before. Obviously, this has 3 hash ports, as you can see, H0, H1, and H2. So that would obviously depend on your specific unit as well. Like an Avalon Nano 3 will only have 1 hash board. And then the fan mounts will vary depending on unit. This has 2. And then it tells you all this other information, how much power it's pulling at this exact moment. We'll compare this software rating to what's actually being pulled on the PDU in a little bit here. Configuration tab, this is where you would configure your pool information. I use via BTC. You do you. I just like via BTC when it comes to Bitcoin mining. No particular reason other than they have the lowest. Oh, I want to make sure I phrase this properly. Via BTC has the lowest feeless payout. So there are pools that will pay out at lower denominations of Bitcoin than via BTC, but via BTC has the lowest where they pay the fees. So that's why I like using them. I can pay it when I want. And then hardware config, this will be your speed, high performance or versus power mode. So we'll go over those and check out the different performance we get on those. Network, this is if you want static IP or not. Log, this is all your typical log information. So if you ever have any errors or issues with the unit, this is where you're going to want to come and look. This is where their customer service will have you, copy this information and send it to them if you ever have issues with your miner. And then system is just your password upgrade and reboot.
upgrade is for firmware upgrades, but on all Avalon devices minus the Nano 3, which is meant to be a home miner and has a built-in app that'll prompt you for updating things. Most of the time on Avalon miners, you're gonna have to download from their website any firmware updates. So yeah, back to this main page, you can see we're Avalon Miner 1566 212 terahash edition. It looks like we are right around that at a real-time hash rate. Average will get there in a little bit. And let's bring up the pool side, see what's happening on that. You can see that for via BTC, you have an account and worker name. So yours will depend on how you do that. So I've logged into my via BTC account. I haven't actually been mining Bitcoin to my via BTC account in a little bit, mainly because most of my Bitcoin ASICs are off because they're older model, older generation. But you can see we have one. It is now registered. If I go to the workers page, it is showing up as A1566 because that's what I put there. And so far, it has a 10-minute average of close to 200. It isn't quite there yet. And 1 hour average of 66. So over time, we'll see those. But at least on the worker side, you can already see those numbers pretty clearly here. We're going to do a quick refresh, just make sure we got the latest and greatest information. All temperatures are looking good, just below 70s. Fan RPMs are pretty low too. So nothing too surprising there. So far, everything seems to be working great. Really no complaints. We're gonna try a couple different things. We'll give this a little while. But we'll say after a half hour, we'll come back and we'll, instead of being in this normal configuration, we will try the power mode. Uh, I'm not sure why that's what it's called. I'm guessing this is the low power. Um, but we'll find out and see what that does. But for now, we're going to jump out of the computer, go check out the PDU, see what we're actually seeing on the PDU for power, see how close we are to this 3,750 watts. We're back in Blue Squadron, checking on our miner here. It runs really quiet. I mean, again, I have the noise canceling on, so you probably can't hear it. But it's really quiet for an ASIC miner. Now, is it something you'd put in your living room? No, absolutely not. Do not put this in your living room. This is still not a home miner. But compared to typically, I'd say most of these run at like 75, 80 decibels. It seems like it's definitely a little lower, maybe in the 60 to 65 range. I'll have to get a decibel meter at some point. But let's go check out the power draw on this side. So you can see we're pulling about 16.4 amps at 233 volts. So let's do a quick little math. This is about 3,830 watts, plus or minus, 10 watts or so. It's fluctuating, as you can see. Both the voltage and our amperage are moving up and down. So it's right around 3,830, which is about 80 watts more than what it's reporting in software, which you'll see when we jump back onto the computer. So it's pretty accurate for a software report, but it does seem like it's missing it by a little bit. Probably some inefficiency or something like that, and that's calculating after the PSU. So there's some loss of efficiency, I'm guessing, between where it's plugged in and the PSU. But yeah, it's not too far off, so pretty accurate. That is a lot for a miner, 3,800 watts. I feel like miners keep going higher and higher and higher. I remember when everything was under 3,000, and then everything was like 3,000 to 3,200, then 3,500. Definitely seems like bigger ASICs just keep on going up and up and up. But I mean, it's running great. So we're gonna hop back into the computer, see how our averages are going, and then we'll try out the other power mode and see what that does. We are back in the computer. Things are still hovering along. It's been running for 31 minutes. Real-time hash rate of 213.
This has been really stable. The average hash rate is slowly climbing up to that, probably because it had a ramp up period when it first started, if I had to guess. So you can see that we have now a 10-minute average, well above 212 actually. Um, so that's good. Like I said, on the pool, you're going to see variation, um, a lot more than you see in the dashboard on your actual miner. That's just how mining works. I'm not going to talk about how you know the pool calculates your current hash rate. That's kind of a conversation for a different day. But essentially, your pool hash rate is going to vary and have swings low and high. Um, but this has been real steady. Every time I've updated this page, it's somewhere around 213 point something. Um, so it's really nice to see that it's rock steady. And here's what I was saying earlier when we were just out of the computer, that we're really close to what's being reported at the wall, a little lower, about, maybe 80 watts, 75 watts lower in software. But at the amount of wattage we're talking about, that is pretty darn close. That's very little off. Um, so that's nice to see. But yeah, now that we have confirmed that we're rocking it on the pool, we're well above our 212 terahash rating. Let's go to configuration and see what this other configuration mode does. So right now you can see we're in this high performance. So there's this power mode, which I'm assuming is low power. Oh, oh, super interesting. I've never seen this. So this must be new in, at least since the other Avalon units I have. The 11 and 12 unit never had this second drop down pop up. So it looks like we have multiple power modes. Looks like maybe 5. So we'll go back. So high performance is just, standard highest output operation. But when you go to power mode, it looks like you can select multiple levels. Everything from, okay, I don't know why it looks like it's saying from 0 to 4. Um, so I'm not sure what all these extra numbers it's letting me put are. I don't know. We'll just do 4, I guess, for now. Do you guys think I need to put the 0 here? I'm not sure. This is very different. So I'm just gonna put 0 for it and see what happens. We'll press save. Um, and see what happens, I guess. Yeah, I really don't know. Um, 0 to about 0.4. Okay. Yeah, we really don't know. Whoa. Wow. We dropped our power a ton. 2,943 watts. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Um, that was really sudden on that side. I guess we'll keep doing this. Like, if we do 3, what does that do? Um, and then maybe we'll go check each of these out individually. I just want to see. I really don't know if like one's going higher or lower. So it looks like 3 is higher than 4. So maybe 0 is max hash rate. I'm not really sure. Um, let's see. We'll do 2 now, I guess. Go down to 0.2. And see what that does on our power side. Give it a moment to update. There it goes. Yeah, so it looks like the closer you go to 0, in this power level, the closer you're getting to full hash rate and full power. So it looks like if I go to 0.1, it'll probably be, even closer to full power. But that's actually really cool that they have so many different levels. It is interesting that it says 0 through 4, but it looked like it'll let me put any number. So maybe I'll try like 0.5 and see what happens. Um, yeah, see 0.1, now we're almost at 3,500 watts. So that's kind of cool. So I guess for you guys, what I'll do is, I wonder what the hash rate at each of these will do. I'm guessing this dropped considerably here just because I keep changing the settings. So we'll have to do a better job of this a little longer at each power level. It does look like this 0 power level, though, is in fact getting us right back to default power wattage on the unit that we were seeing, which was that 3,750 in software, which is about 3,830 at the wall. Again, just missing it maybe less than 100 watts in reporting, which is probably just the PSU inefficiency. Really cool though. I guess let's do it. Let's see what does 0.5 do to anything, or is it going to error out and go back to 0.4? What do you guys think? Here we go. We're going to press. Here we go. Oh, get an error. Okay, so if you go outside of range, it just won't let you do it. So there you go. Your range is 0 to 0 to 4. 4 is the highest you can go. It was funny because you can even go negative here in software, and I'm sure it just says, yeah, the same error. So that's kind of funny. Do you think maybe an improvement would be to do a drop-down list where you can just select the different power levels? It'd be kind of cool if they even said like what they're rated for, like, oh, level 4 does this many terahash at this many watts, something like that. So that'd be cool. So, but let's start figuring out what each of these are. So we know that 0 is full power. So let's actually start at the other end of the spectrum. Let's start at 4 and do a save. Um, and it looks like you don't have to reboot the miner. It just instantly takes effect. So we'll do 0.4. That'll update our power considerably. It'll drop down. So let's wait for it to drop down, and then let's see where it actually ends up at hash rate wise. I'm curious what essentially low power mode gets you on this unit. It's been about 10 minutes now, almost, that we've been running in the 0.4 power mode, which is, I think, the lowest. I believe we'll find out. And everything's stabilized. Ignore the reject over here. So I actually, just to give you guys fresh information, I did a restart on the unit. And when it restarted, the first couple shares were all rejects, but it hasn't actually added more to that in a while. That's kind of normal for any ASIC when they reboot to either have a lot of hardware errors or a lot of rejected shares. So again, this is just because I rebooted it. But yeah, in 0.4 power mode, you can see here 0.4. We are consistently at about 185 terahash and 3,200 watts. Obviously, add about 75 to this. That's what we're getting at the actual wall. So 3,275 to or 3,280 watts or so for 185 terahash. Not too shabby. This is what these units were, like I said, right to be around. So I'm guessing they figured once they started manufacturing these that there is some headroom on these chips and that they can be overclocked to get up to that 212. So next we're going to move on to our nope, not 0.5. We've learned that doesn't work. We'll go to 0.3. Do a quick save here. And once that starts going along, we'll give it another 10 minutes and see where its power and real-time hash rate end up. It hasn't quite been 10 more minutes, but it's been pretty close. And again, these hash rates are really, really steady once they get to whatever they're supposed to be. So pretty much immediately, this jumped up about another 90 watts. So we're almost, from 3,200 up to 3,300 in software. So it's probably an additional 75. And we pretty much jumped about 6.1, 6.2 terahash from that 185 mark. So now we're at 191. And we've just kind of been hovering at that. Again, ignore the rejects here. Those original 23 rejects are just going to stay there for the rest of this comparison. But yeah, really steady. So I'm guessing with that if I move to, because there's 5 different modes essentially, and we've done 2 so far. I'm gonna go to actual 2 now. I'm assuming it will probably be right under 200 terahash, if I had to guess, and probably like 3,400 watts. That seems to be what this is doing, is like 100 watts to get you 6 terahash. But we'll find out here, in a moment. Once it starts going up there, it will drop a little bit in power initially every time you change the settings, but it will ramp back up. There it goes. You can see it's already jumping back up to 3370. So it gained about another 70 watts. It might end up being a little more than that once it dials in to the new hash rate. And we should actually see that hash rate change on this chart as well. This chart is only like a 5-minute chart, or not even, it's like a 1-minute chart. So it would be nice if you could change the duration on this so it could be longer, but it is what it is. But we should see a jump in our hash rate here shortly. There it goes. It just started going up. So it looks like it ups the power first for about a minute, and then after a minute, it starts to ramp up to its new terahash. So we'll see where this levels off. Or you can see we were at the 191. Right now we're at 193.4. Not sure where it's going to end up on this setting. We'll just have to wait and see. Been about another 5 minutes here or so. And you can see we have reached a new plateau. This time it didn't go up as much. We were at like that 191, now we're at 195.5, so only went up about a little more than 4 terahash for that 60 or so watts. It looks like we went up about 65, 70 watts. So that's power level 02. So we're getting closer to full power. So we'll do 01 now, do a save, see where that gets us. And I guess now that I'm spending a little more time at each level, we'll actually find out if 00 does get it back to full hash rate or not. Not 100% sure. So be interesting to see how that goes. So big jump in power between 02 and 01. It's been around like 60, 70 watts. This one jumped up almost about 100 watts. So maybe it'll have a bigger jump in hash rate though because of that. We'll have to wait and see. To be seen, but very possible that that's what'll happen here. Been another 5+ minutes or so, maybe a little longer. At the new, this was the 01 power rating. And as you can see, we're hovering around that same, the power updates almost immediately. So this is still the 3462 that we saw, or right around that. The hash rate has stabilized around 200.5. So still, what is that? About 12 terahash below max on this unit. But the power is also well below. It's almost about 250, 300 watts below what is full. So that's 01. So now we'll find out for sure if 00 is truly full hash rate or not. We'll go to 0, do a save, and we will see. And this actually makes a lot more sense now why it says power mode, because you're choosing the power level. Whereas in the past, this would have been like low power or efficiency mode or something like that. But you have a bunch of options. So definitely makes a little sense. You can see our power's already skyrocketed up that additional 250 or more. And we'll have to wait, a few more minutes to see the full hash rate. I'm going to guess this will be full hash rate, but I could be wrong. You never know. But considering this power is the same as full hash rate, I'd be surprised if this didn't jump up to 212 now. Been another few minutes here, and you can see that we have indeed gotten back up to the 213. So just above that 212 terahash the unit is rated for, and it's been super stable at this 213, just like it was before we started playing with the power levels. And this number is right about where it was, the 3,750 watts, which again, at the wall, we're seeing about 3,830, so an additional 80 watts or so over what is reported in the software. But yeah, this 213 seems to coincide whether you're in the power mode here and using power level 00, or if you're using high performance. It seems to be the exact same high performance being the 00 power level and getting you full hash rate on the unit. Really cool that they offer so many power levels. It would have been nice to, I'll be honest, it'd be cool if they could actually go further. So as you saw, the O4, which is essentially the low power mode on this, was getting that 185 terahash or so, right around there. I can't remember off the top of my head. But still at well over 3,000 watts. It would be really cool to see like a way to drop it below 3,000 on these units, and see what the hash rate would be. But right now, that's not really an option. Maybe there'll be a firmware upgrade in the future for that. So that's kind of all I got on the trial and error of this for now. I'm going to move it back into high performance mode, just for the remainder of my testing purposes. Um, it should have no difference in power and hash rate here. Yeah, and that's just so when I turn it back on, it just goes to this default mode. So we're going to jump out of the computer one last time. Then we'll be back in the computer. I do want to do some quick comparisons with other latest generation Bitcoin miners from, especially Antminer, the S21, what's offered, what the comparisons are, both on hash rate, price, and, you know, levels. This is not a hydro model, so I'm not going to compare it to hydro models. We're going to do an apples to apples, not apples and oranges comparison to what else is out there from the latest gen from other manufacturers. But before we get into that, I want to do one last look at the unit in the farm, in its temporary location until I get it into a real home in its ASIC mining room in the long term.
We're back at the unit in the Blue Squadron room. Again, been working great. It's at full hash rate right now. 2 fans. Just things I want to check on while I'm here. Temperature. It's pretty cool to the touch on those 2 sides. Actually, even on the side that is right up against the hashboard, not too hot at all. Our connector, very cool, very cool. Nothing too crazy. And again, I can't really show you because I don't have a decibel meter and I have noise canceling mic, but also definitely quieter than most Avalon ASICs from the past. We're going to hop into the back. It is definitely very warm air coming out, like any ASIC. So again, not something that, unless you're in a high ventilation area, an industrial space like I am, a mining shed purpose built, maybe even a garage with proper ventilation, you're definitely going to have to deal with the heat. So again, not really a home miner unless you have a really robust mining setup at home. And just so you guys can see, we're still hovering right around the same as before. So very consistent, very stable miner. I'm really happy with it. The 212 terahash was a nice add beyond the original 185 I think these units were designed for. Like I said, it seems like a lot of that is gained in overhead, and they must have just had a good batch of chips and realized they can be overclocked. And that's what all those power levels and the high performance mode really get you. But 212 is really nice. You can see everything else on here, 22 amp max for the input. So this definitely is a high output PSU. So, nothing too crazy there. But yeah, other than that, running great. We're gonna head back into the computer, do some final comparisons with other, um, modern units, latest generation Bitcoin miners, just to get some final thoughts on this unit. But yeah, really, really excited they sent me this to test for you guys. I think it's a great unit. Again, I really like Canon or Canaan, however you want to pronounce it, products. That's been my go-to when it comes to BTC ASICs because they're both tend to be cheaper in cost and also have longer warranties. And I personally think they're a more reputable company. Being a publicly traded company on stock exchanges, they have to, you know, pay more attention to how they treat their customers, um, customer service, shareholders, all those things. It all factors in to being what I've come to experience as personally a more user friendly um, relationship than say with What's Miner or Bitmain. That being private entities, you're kind of a lot more at their um, really at their disposal to how they want to deal with you. Obviously, that's true with any private company, and Canon is indeed, still, yes, it's publicly traded and owned, but it is still any company. I'm not saying they're perfect. I just do think that they are a much more reputable company in my personal experience, and that's why I have preferred to buy their products over the years for Bitcoin mining. It would be cool to see Canon get into maybe some altcoins. Bitmain is really kind of the only big manufacturer that has gone out and attacked and taken on some altcoin. And I think that not having that competition on altcoins is kind of detrimental to those coins, unfortunately. So it'd be nice to see if Canon uh, ever got into expanding beyond just Bitcoin. But right now, they just really do Bitcoin miners. So we're going to head back into the computer for some final thoughts and comparisons to other units out there. And then we'll be done for the day on this unit. But yeah, hopefully that you have found this very insightful so far.
We are back in the computer for one last synopsis on here. So I brought up a couple different things I want to talk about. For this little comparison we're going to do here real quick. This isn't going to be anything, super formal or anything. Again, this is more just, general information in comparison of this product to other latest gen air cooled specifically. We're talking air cooled BTC miners. Avalon does have an immersion cooled, which I'll briefly mention. But again, this is an air cooled unit, so it's only fair to compare it to other current generation products that are available that are air cooled. So looking at their main page here for the A15, there's actually now it looks like a even higher model, the 218 terahash. Um, but right, I have the 212, which is this A15 XP version apparently, which is right now going for a little over 3,000. And that this is direct from them. Obviously, third parties will mark them up or do what they do. I have seen that Coastal Crypto was at least offering these for below 3,000 in the last month. I don't know if they still are. Again, with Bitcoin pumping, everything's kind of rising. Um, and then, the standard 185 terahash unit is a little cheaper as well. But let's go compare to some other ones. I brought up two different sites I like to use, ASIC Miner Value and Mine the ASIC. ASIC Miner Value tends to have more obscure skews, so to speak, of different units and a little more. Whereas Mine the ASIC tends to be the more common units, I'll say. So again, I don't really want to compare to oranges, and I consider hydro models oranges in this case. This is a air-cooled model, so we're going to compare to other air-cooled models for this purpose. So looking at these, we can pretty much eliminate everything right off the top here, pretty much all the way down to the Bitmain Antminer S21 XP. This is the first air-cooled model on here, I believe, just off the top of my head. And you can see here that, yes, it does get more terahash, 270 terahash at 3,600 watts about, but its going rate right now is considerably more it's almost 6 grand is the going rate on that. Um, so you're paying quite the premium for about a little less than 60 more terahash. It's still obviously more efficiency as well in the long term as well. This is actually the Canon immersion model, so it's not a hydro model. I don't think Canon has ever made a true hydro model like with built-in um, cooling, built-in liquid. But they have immersion models that are meant for immersion setups. So this is what the I means at the end for immersion. It looks like their current 15 series is actually a little better than the air-cooled one. So 250 terahash at 4,500 watts. So again, less efficient, but it is also cheaper. Um, but I want to get down to where we're pretty close in comparison. So let's keep going down. This is on their on ASIC miner value. They're listing the A15 XP at 206 terahash. Again, mine's 212, but we'll use this as a good base point. I think this is a pretty solid point to be looking at. Again, most of these around it are still hydro models for the most part. I want to say the 60S Plus might be the first What's miner that is an air-cooled model, if I remember right. So that one's right around the same terahash at the same wattage. But again, for considerably more money, almost $1,000 more than our A15 XP, which is what I currently have. Again, it's slightly more efficient, tiny bit more terahash, but considerably more expensive, which will extend out your ROI on the device. The closest comparable Bitmain is probably the S21 Plus. So we already talked about the S21 Pro and the XP air-cooled model, but we're gonna, I think, focus a little more on this as our direct comparison, the S21 Plus. So that's 216 terahash at 3,500 watts, and that one's going for about 3,600 currently. So again, really an additional 600 more. And again, I've seen the Canons below 3,000 still, so you might be able to find a good deal. So again, they're really well priced for what they're comparable to. Now, you will notice looking at these that Canon doesn't have models that really match up with the super high-end Bitmains or the What's miner, which again are hydro models, but it would be cool to see Canon, start to compete in the upper echelon range. But for a mass deployment ready air-cooled solution, they are very, very competitive and really always have been for the terahash and the price per terahash that you pay. Want to quickly jump over here because this kind of, although there's less information here, it does kind of help me with my argument on the payback time because this calculator actually does have that built in. So they don't have the XP model here. They just have the immersion, which is the 250 terahash, and the 185 terahash air cooled. So I don't have an exact thing to compare it to. But you can see how just by dropping the price down to 2,000, your payback time is definitely lower than, say, this is like the closest What's miner air cooled is 212 at 29 months versus 22 months. I mean, that's a sizable difference in payback time. Or even jumping up to your 21 XP, this is your air cooled of 25.7 months. So again, it just has a lot longer because the price is so much more. So that's kind of all I wanted to talk about today. Again, this isn't an exact science when it comes to comparing models, especially because everyone gets different prices. You may have a good contact or something like that. So, it may not be the best thing for you, or it may. Again, I really like that they have a longer warranty period than What's miner or Bitmain or some of these new ones like Seal Miner I've never heard of until recently. But I've always had a good experience with them. I have had a unit that had issues before, and they have stateside repair centers, so that is cheaper to ship to as well for repairs. I had great customer service on that, honored the 1-year warranty without any questions asked. So that was great. Again, I've had a bunch of different series over the years, 11 and 12 series, and I do like my little lottery miners too, the Avalon Nanos. I think that was a cool thing to expand into for them, a little bit of the home miner. I do hope someday they will get into things beyond just Bitcoin. I think it'd be really cool to see another competitor in the altcoin space, especially knowing that they've traditionally um, undercut Bitmain on costs. Maybe not quite on performance, but it is nice that they would most likely be a cheaper option if they ever got in the altcoin market. So that'd be really cool to see. But yeah, other than that, that's kind of all my thoughts today on the Canon A1566. I really appreciate them sending this to me to review. Really excited that I, got to finally do an official review for you guys. Um, Again, just want to be honest with you guys. This is sponsored content, but these are all my own thoughts on this product and my experiences I've had with them. Uh, I hope that if you do end up deciding to get any of their products, that you have an equally good experience. Definitely reach out to their support. They're very responsive if you ever have any issues. Um, but yeah, so thanks again, Canon, for the opportunity to review this unit, and hopefully we can partner in the future some more. And that's all I got today on my Avalon A1566. Until next time.